Labor's uneasy truce has shattered, and the knives are finally out in public. Andy Burnham, once hailed as Labor's northern heavyweight, has sparked open warfare with Keir Starmer and his cabinet after daring to question the bond markets and hinting at a future leadership bid. What followed wasn't quite disapproval behind closed doors, but a barrage of fury from Starmer's allies, with comparisons drawn to the economic chaos of Liz Truss. The question now is simple. Has Burnham overplayed his hand, or is this the first real crack in Starmer's grip on power? It all began with a single interview. Speaking to the New Statesman, Andy Burnham dismissed the idea that Labour must always bow to the demands of the bond markets. His words, "We've got to get beyond this thing of being in hock to the bond markets," were bold, even defiant. But in Westminster, they landed like a thunderclap. Senior Labour figures immediately drew a dangerous parallel. Burnham's rhetoric sounded alarmingly close to the cavalier language used by Liz Truss before her disastrous mini-budget. And almost on cue, borrowing costs surged to their highest level in weeks, fueling claims that markets were rattled by Burnham's intervention. For Starmer's team, this wasn't just bad timing, it was political sabotage. But Burnham wasn't finished. Keir Starmer's response was swift and furious. Behind closed doors, allies say the Prime Minister was livid at Burnham's remarks, seeing them as a direct challenge not only to his authority, but to Labour's economic credibility. In front of the cameras, Starmer didn't hold back. He reminded the country that it was 3 years ago this week when Liz Truss tore up fiscal rules, sending markets into freefall and hammering mortgage holders. And then he drew a red line of his own. Under his leadership, Labour would never repeat that mistake. Starmer made it clear, abandoning fiscal discipline, whether for tax cuts or for extra spending, would always end in disaster. The message was unmistakable. Burnham's words weren't just careless, they were dangerous. But Starmer's fury was only the beginning of the backlash. The cabinet wasted no time circling around their leader. Bridget Phillipson, often seen as one of Starmer's most loyal allies, warned that casual language on the bond markets risked plunging working families back into the same mortgage misery unleashed under Liz Truss. Steve Reed, the housing secretary, was even blunter, accusing Burnham of firing potshots from the sidelines, while Starmer had dragged Labour from the ruins of opposition to a record-breaking election victory. And inside government, unnamed officials twisted the knife further, claiming Burnham had effectively spent tens of billions in the space of a few interviews, without offering any serious plan to pay for it. The message was coordinated and brutal. Burnham was reckless, out of touch, and threatening the very stability Labour had promised the nation. But if Starmer's ministers hoped to shut him up, they miscalculated, because Burnham came back swinging. Andy Burnham wasn't about to retreat. Instead, he doubled down. In interview after interview, the Greater Manchester mayor defended his stance, insisting he wouldn't toe the line or stay quiet when people in his city were suffering. He branded the two-child benefit cap the worst of Westminster, a toxic policy he argued Labour had no moral right to defend. And he claimed Labour MPs were privately urging him to keep speaking out, some even pushing him to consider a return to Westminster. Burnham went further still, accusing Downing Street of fostering a climate of fear and leaving MPs feeling alienated and demoralized. His message was clear. He wasn't just a regional mayor throwing stones from the sidelines, but a voice for those inside Labour who felt silenced. For Starmer, this wasn't just defiance. It was a direct challenge to his authority. And the clash wasn't only about loyalty. It was about two competing visions for Labour's future. At the heart of the row lies a deep policy rift. Burnham has sketched out a platform that looks very different from Rachel Reeves's ironclad fiscal rules. He's floated higher council tax on expensive homes, a 50% income tax rate for the richest, mass investment in council housing, and even nationalization of utilities like water. To his supporters, it's a bold, progressive agenda that puts fairness before financial markets. But to Starmer's allies, it's a dangerous fantasy. Whispers quickly turned into open speculation. Was Burnham preparing for a leadership bid? The mayor himself has been coy, insisting any move would have to be more than a personality contest. But he admitted that if a path to the top job opened, he would seize it. The problem? Burnham doesn't even hold a Westminster seat, making any challenge a logistical nightmare. Still, that hasn't stopped Labour MPs from gossiping. Some quietly encourage him, seeing in Burnham a chance to pivot the party toward a bolder, more populist economic strategy and a potential bulwark against Nigel Farage's Reform UK. Others, though, are scathing. One MP from the 2024 intake sneered that Burnham is desperate, while another senior aide accused him of lobbing grenades from afar after abandoning Westminster during the Corbyn years. The divide is stark. To some, he's the party's future. To others, he's yesterday's man. But either way, Burnham has forced the question out into the open. For Labour, the stakes couldn't be higher. Starmer built his rise to power on a single promise: stability after years of Conservative chaos. But the sight of his own ministers openly attacking a Labour mayor, while Burnham talks up an alternative economic path, risks shredding that image before the public's eyes. The markets are already twitchy, with borrowing costs climbing in the wake of Burnham's remarks. The Conservatives smell blood, ready to paint Labour as divided and reckless, while Nigel Farage and Reform UK see an opening to peel off disillusioned voters. Inside Westminster, the fear is that every clash between Starmer and Burnham makes the party look less like a government in waiting and more like a family at war. And once that perception sets in, it's almost impossible to undo. So where does this leave Labour? On one side, a prime minister determined to prove his party can be trusted with the economy. On the other hand, a powerful northern mayor daring to challenge the rules of the game and hinting he's not afraid of a fight for the top job. Is Andy Burnham the bold truth-teller Labour needs, or a reckless saboteur risking the party's fragile unity? And can Keir Starmer keep his grip when the rebellion is coming from within his own ranks? The battle lines are drawn, but the war has only just begun. Let us know what you think in the comments.